Hello, my name is Bonnie Newman, and my presentation is going to be about remote sensing applications in agricultural science, which is the field that I'm currently in. Right now I'm working in a crop science biodiagnostics lab, and we test for percent germination and anomalies in different seed varieties as well as different seed treatments. But we don't test during the growing season. So my idea was essentially to use remote sensing to test entire fields during the growing season, kind of similar to the way we would test them in a lab. As far as my needs statement goes, first and foremost, my system would need to be able to capture vegetative conditions from the crops, such as stress, disease, maturity, and also it would be nice if it could pick up soil properties, such as soil moisture, texture, etc. And then another need that I had was that the budget would need to be within a reasonable range, as the data should be available to farmers and other growers who may not have quite as high of a budget as some of the larger companies that use remote sensing. And then last but not least, the system needs to be able to capture data from fields at least several hundred acres in size. So I found that the system that best suited my needs was a multispectral scanner. And this is because they've been shown to have a wide variety of agricultural uses. They're already pretty common in that field. And they also do a good job of scanning in the wavelength that I need them to, which I'll get to later. In addition, they have the added benefit of being able to be used year-round, so we would be able to take data throughout the growing season. And then this is a type of whisk broom or a cross-track scanner. As far as elevation goes, I think the exact elevation would be pretty dependent on the size of the field or the farm that we're scanning. However, aerial would definitely be the way to go for this type of work, and you could either use a multispectral scanner on a drone or an airplane. So the main sensor that we would want to utilize to analyze vegetative conditions would be a color infrared sensor, and this would scan at a wavelength of 0.7 to 0.9 microns. At this wavelength, we'd be able to see differences in crop species, we'd be able to see physiological conditions, stress, disease, and we'd also be able to pick up soil properties. So pretty much anything we could hope to want for crop analysis would be available at this wavelength. So our data should be collected throughout the growing season, and this is going to be dependent on both the area we're working in and what crop species we're looking at. But for Wisconsin, for example, that may go May through October. And data should probably be taken at least once early in the growing season and once before harvest, but because we're using an aerial system, it could get pretty expensive if we collect data too frequently, but obviously more collection is better if our budget allows for it. The amount of ground truthing that we'll have to do is going to be dependent on the size of the area that we're scanning. However, in general, ground truthing should be done as a reference point whenever we're taking remote data, as it's the only way we can 100% make sure that our remote data is being interpreted correctly, especially for things such as disease resistance and physiological conditions in crops. When interpreting images in color infrared, it's important to keep in mind that we're going to get false colors. So for example, vegetation that would be green in real life is going to reflect more infrared and will show up as red in our image. So this is going to make it easier to see variances created in our various crop species as well as our range of physiological conditions that I mentioned earlier. So a lot of the anticipated benefits for our farmers and growers that use this technology are going to be the same as a lab test, just during a different phase of the crop's life cycle. So for example, we're going to be able to detect crop stress, a range of physiological conditions, crop maturity, and even soil properties while the crops are actively growing in the ground, as opposed to when they're being germinated in a lab, which is how we test them at my workplace. And I did use a few different sources and studies to make this presentation, so I will link them in my PowerPoint. And thank you for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Thank you.